let's do it. Welcome to Living, Breathing, and Having a Good Time. I'm your host, Sierra, and today we have Gary Murad from Boston, Massachusetts, who is a traveling freak and a recovering lawyer, lobbyist, hedge fund guy. So you're very interesting, and there's a lot of information to cover with you because every time I go on social media, you're in Sri Lanka, you're God knows where. You're everywhere. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
A little background about me. Okay, born and raised here in Boston. I'm a Capricorn. My favorite color is blue. No, I definitely have a travel bug, and it usually comes from traveling background-wise. Grew up in the burbs outside the city. I went to college here in Massachusetts at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, which is the western part of the state. I went to law school in Boston, and I went to business school at Boston College.
And so, that is pretty amazing. That's a lot in and of itself. And you were in the Army. You were in the military.
I spent some time, a few years in the Army, yep. And I think I always grew up traveling with my family because neither of I'm first generation American.
Mm-hmm.
And so that introduced me to traveling, and we used to watch the news at night at dinner time, and I think, you get a little bit of a global perspective from that. But really, after graduation college, did the typical backpacking around Europe for a few months.
Typical backpacking. When you say typical, it's not typical, Gary. It's typical to me and you because we like to travel, but you literally took a year and went backpacking. So
that was after law school, but after college, I did that typical, hey, let's go to Europe, get the Eurail pass, and stay in hostels with some of your friends and do that for a couple of months. That was the first time I really traveled like that. And then I took 2 years off before I went to law school. So I was I had been a hospitality major at UMass, and so thought I'd work for a restaurant company, open up my own restaurant. I'd worked in restaurants since the time I was 13. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a little bit of all I knew. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, once you get into it, it's not as glamorous as it seems. So I decided I would go back to school. So I went to law school full time, but I continued to bartend. So I was saving money. And after my first summer of law school, I should say after my first year of law school, that summer, I decided to drive cross country and go fly to New Zealand and Australia for the summer, backpacking around. And it was then that I really started meeting other true travelers, not tourists, but travelers. Like, hey, how long are you traveling for? And I'm like, oh, I'm traveling for 3 months. I'm super cool. How about you? Oh, yeah, I've been traveling for 3 years. And it's just like, what?
Yeah, because honestly, when I hear like a couple months, people are like, well, how does he do that? And this is the interesting thing that I wanted to bring up that I've brought up with several other people that I've done things where other people are like, well, how? Traveling is like education in itself, and probably way better than what's in any book. Would you agree with that? So
1,000%. And of course, traveling today is very different than when I backed around the world for a year. So after I met these people and they were telling me how long they were traveling, I said, you know what, I'm going to go back let me back up. I was like, I don't understand. I don't understand. How can you travel for nonstop? You just travel? And they were like, yeah. And a lot of these people were obviously from different countries. I didn't meet any Americans doing that, but people from Canada, from South Africa, from Israel, and a few other places, Denmark. I'm like, I don't understand. It doesn't compute. It's, well, I'm here, and then I'll find a job, make some money, go to the next place, find a job, make some money, whatever it might be. I said, you know what? I'm doing that. Like, I'm going to go finish my second year of law school, and then I'm going to take a sabbatical year, thinking that I could travel for a year, then go back to school and graduate, it would be easier to find a job. And this is kind of a funny story, but I was committed to that. Your second year of law school, you can start interviewing for jobs. And I remember I told my parents, I came back, I said, you know what? After next year, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go travel. And they were like, no, don't do it. That's crazy. You might never come back. You're nuts. And I'm like, don't tell me. Don't tell me what to do. I'm doing it. And of course, I'm doing some of these interviews at school, and I was meeting with the Marine Corps JAG recruiter, the General's Office recruiters, where you'd be an attorney in the military branch. And he said, listen to me. I told him what I wanted to do, and he said, well, listen to me. I don't know you from a hole in the wall, but I'm telling you, finish school, then go do it. And it kind of reminded me of that movie, Meet the Parents, with Steve. And he's like, hey, honey, it's cold. Grab your jacket. And she's like, oh, don't worry about it, Dad. And, kind of flips him off. And then the boyfriend's like, no, it's kind of cold. You should get your jacket. She's like, okay. It's like, something, and it's an automatic, like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. But then this random guy I've never met before in my life is like, I'm telling you right now, I'm finished school. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I finished school. I take the bar exam that July. And I left late September. I remember my dad saying, well, what if you don't pass the bar? I'm like, well, I'll just take it next year because I'm going traveling. And so this was 95, 96. And what I was saying it's different is, well, there weren't cell phones, there was no social media, and there was no remote work. The people that you met backpacking then were really hardcore travelers, whereas today this whole digital nomad, remote work, anybody with a laptop can go anywhere in the world.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Just hang out, and they're traveling, but so that was
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, because people can travel and work, whereas back in the day, you had no means whatsoever if you were going to travel other than working somewhere that you're traveling. So, I mean, did you just bartend certain places as you went along, or what?
So I was really lucky back then. I had always been working in restaurants since I was 13. I mean, I used to hustle, and after I graduated college, I was working in bartending in some bars and during law school. So I was able to save some money, and I was living at home. My folks had moved into the city the summer after I had graduated college, and I was living with them for a few years. So I was able to sock away some cash, and that's what I used to travel with. I had the intention of maybe getting odd jobs, but as I was traveling, it just didn't make sense unless you were going to just volunteer in a hostel and stay for free. But you'd have to stay for a bit, and that wasn't going to give you any money. It just let you not pay for a hostel bed, which wasn't a ton of money. So I just traveled on my savings.
So, I mean, I've met people before that just said, screw it. It's either I leave with this set amount of retirement, or I'm just going to travel, blow it, and reset myself all over again. And I've met people.
Also in my mid-20s.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't,
You were older.
Yeah, I was young enough that, you don't even think about that.
Yeah, exactly. But, the inspiring thing is that as the years have went, you've never let that go. You're still having a good time. You're not, most people as they go along, and this because you see it all the time, all they do is work, they get married, they do everything programmed, regimented, and then they kind of fall out of alignment with what really makes life good for them, what they actually enjoy. But you've never stopped that. So it's pretty amazing that you keep going. I mean, literally, how many months out of the year do you travel, or how many places do you go when you do choose to travel during that period of time?
Just to take a step back, after I did that year of traveling, I did start working. I ended up taking a job at our state house here in Massachusetts, and I worked as a legislative staffer for a couple of years. and then I got into lobbying, and I worked as a lobbyist for um, like 12 years
12 years. Okay.
straight, where and working with the state. So in politics, government, where yes, I would take vacations, but I didn't get to take that extended. I wouldn't go away for more than 2 weeks,
Right.
3 weeks, 3 weeks max. I left the lobbying work, went to a hedge fund. I was only there for a year and a half, and they shut down sort of post 2009 crash, tried to make a comeback, weren't able to. It was then actually that I sort of I don't want to say rediscovered travel, but rediscovered long-term travel. I went to South America for 3 months. Just that whole environment and how I felt traveling for 3 months was just so reinvigorating, and I realized I had missed it. And then obviously started my own, well, not obvious, but I started my own consulting business shortly thereafter, and I was busy with that. And I started bartending again to make extra money. And then in 2016, I went to the South Pacific for 3 months. I had a World War II buddy who had been in the Navy, and he was going to Pearl Harbor for the 75th anniversary.
That's very cool. Very neat.
His family. And I decided, since I always wanted to go to Japan and other places and do some scuba diving in the South Pacific. So once I decided to join him, I decided I was going to do this excessive 3-month trip, island hopping, the South Pacific, scuba diving. And then, yeah, I came back from that again. Wow, I really miss this kind of traveling. Started working again. COVID hit a few years later, lost my last client, struggled a little bit, and shortly thereafter, I had to start bartending again, and I got a job at this giant seasonal outdoor place, only open mid-April to mid-October. And since that was 4 years ago. As soon as we close in October, I leave for 5 months, and then I come back to open the bar. I should say it's not just that. Since 2009, I've been buying some properties. So I do have a handful of apartments here in Boston. I got in at the right time. So aside from the bartending, I'm very lucky. I've developed a source of passive income that allows me now.
Which is really smart. I mean, a lot of people do not raise their children on just the basis of, college, university, degree, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people nowadays, especially, are teaching kids more and more about passive income. I mean, my God, you just look at TikTok, or you look at Instagram, or you look at, people on YouTube or anything like that, set aside from what they do on the side, just so that they can go off and do these things. It's very, very smart. Yeah, well, I'm gonna say that's probably where I'm gonna see you next. It's probably YouTube or TikTok.
Because I really need to figure out how to monetize my traveling so that I can just keep traveling.
I know, and so you were in Sri Lanka, and it was really interesting to me how much you really enjoyed Sri Lanka, because you're doing travel that's way more extensive than the normal person. I mean, usually people will say, oh, hey, I'm going to Italy for a couple weeks, or, I'm going to Colorado for a week or whatever. But you're literally hitting places that people don't even, I'm a person, I mean, I've got places I still want to go to, but Sri Lanka was never a place on the map. So tell us a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you in the last few years, I have met a lot of people who are travelers like me, so it's not unusual for me to meet people who have either been to these places or want to go to these places. It's more when you're here in the States or in a big city in Europe, say, and you're out with the average person, then they have zero interest in going to a lot of the countries that myself and some of these other travelers go. So And this year, I started in Reunion Island off the coast of Madagascar, which is French and known for its hiking. And then I went to Mauritius and did some hiking and diving. And then I had a trip with a friend of mine who's a travel blogger in the Maldives. And then she and I and another guy on the trip. I had always wanted to go to Sri Lanka. It was on my list. And it was definitely a place that I'll definitely go back to. I was expecting a different experience there, but I had a much more positive experience than I thought. Just the culture, the people, the scenery, the mix between mountains and jungle and unbelievable beaches and the activities I can do. There's surfing, there's scuba diving, like, as I said, hiking, other things. So yeah, that was definitely a highlight on these travels. I've been gone, as I said, 5 months. After Sri Lanka, I was in Seychelles, Zanzibar, Cape Town. Then I went to Angola for a couple of weeks, which is not really on people's radar. Something they're working on as a country to try to promote more tourism. They don't really have the tourism infrastructure, so it's not an easy place to travel. And then I went to Sao Tome and Principe, which is also a former Portuguese colony like Angola, off the coast of Ghana. And then I went to Cape Verde, which is also a former Portuguese colony. So I try to hit some of the places that are a little off the beaten path, but places that have been on my radar. And it's interesting because when I was traveling around the world, I was in my mid-20s after law school. Now I'm in my 50s, and I'm still traveling the way that I traveled when I was in my 20s. I still backpack. I still stay in a hostel or what we call backpacker accommodations. I'll stay in a dorm room, but not always. It just depends on how much money I've been spending, how much they charge for a private room. I typically like to stay in hostels. Not every country has those type of options. But if I can, for a lot of reasons, you got to meet other travelers, going to hear about where they've been in that country that you're in. You got to hear about other places they visited. They also will usually have some sort of organized tour and organized party nights. And it's just a great way to socialize and meet people from other countries and think about where you might want to go next.
Right. Well, and so, obviously you're a very active person, so you would be a person that has a wealth of knowledge and great advice to people that, you've got your categories of people. You've got active people, very spontaneous people, and then you've got people that, they like to travel, but they, aren't the hikers and the backpackers and the necessary hostel people. So in your travels, for people that want to be more active, where would you say the top 10 places that you've been that you would suggest?
Well, obviously depends on what your interests are, but for sure, and also your budget. Asia is less expensive than, say, Africa, because Africa is so big and you have to usually fly places, and the flying is what's expensive. But yeah, I found Sri Lanka this trip of everything I did. Reunion Island, amazing hiking. You can do multi-day hikings to these villages that the only way to access is by foot or by helicopter. And because it's considered France, they have a great tourist infrastructure there. Sri Lanka for surfing and scuba diving and hiking and just food and culture, really, really enjoyed. Nepal, obviously I didn't go this time, but I've been in Nepal, which has amazing hiking.
Have you hiked all the way up? Have you actually done the entire mountainside? Because I do have clients that do crazy stuff like that.
I mean, I hiked to Annapurna Base Camp. Obviously, you can do Everest in Nepal, but I didn't Everest. No.
Okay.
I'm just thinking about the places that I've been the last couple of years. Last year I was in Mozambique, and I was all over. I was in Africa for 5 months, but Mozambique and Namibia were highlights of mine last year because Mozambique had been in a long time civil war. They were a former Portuguese colony. They got their independence in '75, so they were in conflict until then. Then they had a civil war until 2002. So not a lot of tourism infrastructure, but pristine beaches and phenomenal scuba diving and super friendly people. Namibia has an unbelievable tourist infrastructure set up for camping, driving their coast. They have safaris and these amazing campgrounds, sparsely populated country, very unique environment features from sand dunes to the Skeleton Coast beaches. So two highlights with a lot of activities to do. Yeah, those are some from the last couple of years. I actually have been to I've been to all 7 continents. 2 years ago, I went to Antarctica and I hiked Torres del Paine in Chile, which was a highlight of mine from my last few years of traveling. It's a 8-day hike, camping, and fantastic. Met some great people and just unbelievably breathtaking scenery.
So a lot of people too would ask, and we'll get to the other category of people that aren't the hikers and everything else, but you know, when you're staying at these hostels and you're doing the camping and you're in other countries, don't you ever worry about safety? I mean, have you ever had issues regarding like your own safety or run into weird scenarios or been pickpocketed or anything like that?
So they have one incident that happened in the last few years. No, and yes, I'm always, for example, when I was in Angola, Luanda, they're like, "Oh, don't go out at night walking around by yourself," kind of thing. Although I found myself, maybe going a quarter of a mile by myself to go somewhere to eat on foot at night or whatever. But I'm always try to be very situationally aware of my surroundings and who's coming up to me and what have you, and move with a purpose so people don't want to mess with you. But staying in hostels, no, because generally it's other travelers. I'm always maybe a little concerned. Usually there's lockers, or hopefully no one's trying to steal your stuff. It does happen because there's other travelers who are like maybe don't have enough money and they're thinking, "Oh, here's an easy score." But knock on wood, I've never had any problems. The only time I ever really had a major issue traveling was in 2009. I was with an ex-girlfriend of mine, and we were traveling in South America, and we were in Buenos Aires. It was Christmas Day, and we were in a place called La Boca, which is a very colorful neighborhood where they do tango shows in the street. And she wanted to go a different part of the city, and I said, "All right, we should get a taxi." She said, "No, let's just walk. It's so nice out." And I was like, I mean, they said you got to be careful leaving this neighborhood. No. And I was like, really? And it's a beautiful day. It's Christmas Day. I mean, what's going to happen?
Right.
And we in this other neighborhood, and we're walking down the street, and next thing we do, it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Christmas Day. People everywhere grilling food on the sidewalks in front of the buildings. And these 3 guys just came running up to us. They had guns. I mean, we basically got mugged at gunpoint.
God.
$100, and they took her camera. They took my cell phone though, and I speak some Spanish, so I was just like, basically, I was like, that's an American cell phone, so I got to work here. Can I have my cell phone back? And they gave me my cell phone back. And then I asked for the memory card from her camera. They said after that they kind of lost patience, so they were basically like, "Shut the F up."
I mean, I've got a new show idea for you. You know, I think you should do like a show on travel because you're a one-man band and everybody is, you know, like I said, everybody always gives the excuse, "Oh, it's not safe," or, you know, "I don't have enough money," or, you know, "I don't know where I'm going." I mean, I'm sure you've been in a lot of different countries where, you know, yeah, you can study different things, but when you're there, you find out that it works a lot differently. And I know a lot of people too don't feel good about going somewhere that they're not, you know, they're just not used to, or they don't have that firsthand experience. So basically,
I know about 110 countries now, so I've definitely experienced a varied amount of stuff.
Yeah, no, I think you should do your own show on travel. I think that would be really cool.
I mean, the only one that I was reading Gold on, I had read, like, I shouldn't drive at night. The, not to put him on the spot, but there's a lot of corruption in a lot of different parts of the world, especially law enforcement, because they don't get paid a lot of money. And when you're, um, obviously we're not from their country, and when we get pulled over, a lot of times they pull you over for no reason. It's just for them an easy score. So I was expecting that to happen to me in Tanzania. We rented a car, and I rented a lot of cars, just most recent travels, but in Angola, I was a little bit nervous about driving because I was worried I was going to get pulled over a lot and have to just pay a lot of bribes.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I only got pulled over like 3 times. And one time, the guy was like, okay, here, give me this much money, which would have been like $10. But I mean, everything's cash there. It's a cash economy. So you have to be like, I can't just give all my cash to this cop for no reason. So I ended up giving him the equivalent of $1.50 to the guy. Here you go, buddy. Buy a couple of beers. Another time I got pulled over by a motorcycle cop. He literally just drove out and rolled down my money. He didn't say anything. He just said money. And
Money.
I handed them basically like $1 worth of their currency. I was expecting, it wasn't a terrible experience. It's almost like built in. I was expecting a lot worse. I was expecting to get pulled over constantly. Yeah, it was almost senseless for me to be nervous about it.
So, for people that don't want to go camping and backpacking, do you have places for them as well? Because we were talking about somebody the other night that really the like camping, backpacking, roughing it. If you want to say roughing it, they're more like, hey, I don't want to camp and feel like I'm homeless types of.
I don't really camp when I'm traveling, only when I'm like some of these hiking trips where the camping is part of the hike. And nor do I always stay, as I said, in hostels, sort of backpacking. When I say backpacking too, backpacking means I'm traveling with a backpack. I'm not traveling with a suitcase. I'm not a tourist. Everything I bring, it's in my bag on my back, and I might have a small backpack with me on my front. But obviously, almost anywhere I go, there's the range of accommodations run from a hostel or a guest house all the way to a 5-star hotel. I mean, even not the remote places of Africa, but a lot of places that you're going to go travel, there's always going to be some better options. And my friend Casey, my travel blogger friend, what she likes to do when we want to splurge a little bit, we call it flash packing, where we might get a private room, or we'll get an Airbnb, or we'll get a room in a hotel. And, we're not in a sort of low fee place.
Well, I was just gonna say, because I've done a lot of travel myself, but like going to the islands, for example, like Tahiti, Fiji, Bora Bora, stuff like that. You obviously, are gonna be staying at resorts and stuff like that. But it's interesting because you've done so much, and now you're kind of like just going to do this for the next few years and then pretty much taper off and, like you said, kind of dial it back in and find those 2-3 places where you want to go. So where would you want to go?
So it's funny, there's this group on Facebook called Every Passport Stamp, and it's a community of people who literally want to go to every single country. They want to get every country stamped in their passport. And I do know some people who are back. I know people who are on it. I'm on it. It's also a great research tool, by the way, for anybody listening. It's a great way to people put trip reports, be like, hey, just come back from a month in Angola. Here's my trip report. They'll just write about where they went, how they got in, how they got their visa, how they crossed the border, where they stayed, things like that. People who they use as a driver, who to book a tour with, that kind of thing. But I'm not one of those people. I don't need to go to every country. There's quite a few countries on the planet that I really don't give a crap about going. I have zero interest in going to any country that has a has an interest in chopping my head off on live TV. I don't give a shit about North Korea or Iran or some of these other places.
Well, I mean, a really good example of this is, I had some clients that told me they went to and the guy had both of his knees replaced the year prior. And it's like, oh yeah, we're going to Uzbekistan, and then we're going to Syria, and oh, Syria is so beautiful, you know. Um,
Yeah, there is just some beautiful, well, there was maybe before the Civil War, but some beautiful Roman ruins and
yeah,
hiking there and stuff. But I just don't have any interest in going there. They don't
do anything for you. Yeah.
Some people are like, no, I got to go there because I want to get my passport stamped or whatever. I want to say I went there. I don't care.
So I gotta ask you this too, because you've been so many places. So you've ate some really interesting, weird things, right? I mean, because we always hear about all these countries that have delicacies and whatever, and I've had clients go, "Oh yeah, Sierra, you should really try the live octopus." No, no.
I'm going to answer that. Let me take a step back. So yes, my goal for the next few years is to keep going to some countries I haven't been there on my list. But then, not too far off, I'd like to just instead spend like 2 months, not just in a country, but in a particular area of the country, really just almost be a resident of that area. Like in Sri Lanka, I went to this beautiful place called Hirakatia Beach, which has got some nice, easy waves for surfing and just a cool nightlife scene and some good restaurants and a good vibe. I could see myself going and hanging there for a couple of months. We were talking the other day. I said, going to an island in Croatia and just hanging for 2 months. Costa Rica, what have you. So, I mean, there's a lot of places I've been that I'd be interested in going back. Cape Town, I'd love to live in Cape Town for a few months.
Yeah.
In terms of food, I'm an adventurous person, and I do like food. I think for me, food is one of the main ways to connect with a culture.
Agreed.
Connecting with culture through food, what those people eat. When we were in Senegal last year, we did a couch surfing, so we stayed in someone's home, and they invited us to eat with them. And the ladies make a meal, and then at a certain time, we all sit on the floor around this giant platter of, it was basically rice and fish, and you always eat with your right hand and not your left hand, because the left hand is used to wipe your butt. And you eat only from the area in front of you. But yeah, and sadly, well, I speak French, so luckily they spoke French, but you're trying to communicate with them. We had a couple of experiences like that, so that was great. But I like to think I'm an adventurous eater, but eating a live octopus, I don't like to eat organ meats, things like that. That's not my vibe. But I do want to try generally what the locals eat. If you eat that dish as your typical lunch, I'd like to try it if it's something that I'm not opposed to.
Well, and this is the reason why I bring this up too. This is a really good reason. So, you hear about, and I've been to Mexico plenty of times in different places, but people get food poisoning or parasites or weird things. So, I mean, generally too, when you travel, do you look into that stuff just to kind of make sure you don't, get sick on your trip?
Yeah, I don't look into what's going to happen. Preferably I'm not going to go to a Ebola area, because you just don't know what's going to happen. And generally, yes, when you're traveling in developing countries, they do not have the same
sanitation. Yes.
The culture and rules, because culturally they don't either. But if you're just going to eat a certain type of food all the time, you're not really going to experience the country. So sometimes, you're rolling the dice. I like to eat street food. I'm going to go down the street, and if they're grilling chicken, on this grill outside and it looks good, I'm probably going to get it. I do travel with basically medicine you get, prescription medicine.
Antibiotics, stuff like that.
Traveler's diarrhea. Like if you get sick from something, take pills for a few days. I don't travel with Cipro or antibiotics. I mean, if you really get sick, you just got to go see a doctor over there, and you definitely want to buy travel insurance and things like that, so you're not sort of out on your own. But it's also relatively inexpensive if you have to go see a doctor in a lot of these countries. But yeah, I've gotten sick. The last couple of years, I've been really lucky. A slight dose of food poisoning here and there, you're always going to get a little sick because our bodies are used to the food that we have here and the bacteria that we ingest here. So as soon as you go somewhere out of the mainstream, like the Western world, so to speak, and you start traveling in the developing world, it's just different stuff you're putting in your stomach. It's not necessarily food poisoning, but you're going to get traveler's diarrhea or whatever because your body's not used to what you're putting in it from a germ perspective or bacteria perspective, and it's just normal. And sometimes that just clears up, and it's going to clear up on its own just once your body gets used to it.
So before we wrap this up here, so if people were kind of like standoffish about doing things in life, such as, not just travel, just anything, what would be your 5 pieces of advice to people to just not hold themselves back? Because this is why I brought you on the show, because I find you to be a really interesting person in the fact that many men and women get caught up with, saying no. There's absolutely, no way I'm ever going to be able to do this. So what's your advice to people about that?
Yeah, you and I talked about this last night a little bit or pre-gaming. Okay, so you know what I mean? I'm in my 50s, but I still travel like I did when I was in my 20s. I'm staying at hostels. I'm hanging out with people that could be half my age. I'm still out. I still party like a rock star when I get after it. But when you talk about I'm not going to let society kind of dictate how I live my life. It's this American mentality is changing a little bit, but still, hey, high school, graduate, go to college, maybe go to Europe for a couple of months backpacking, get a job, get married, have kids, keep working. I mean, it's like being in the Matrix. I mean, that's just an anathema to me. And I did it for a while, and it didn't really grate on me. So I've been very happy these last few years with the ability to travel the way I've traveled. The other thing is, and it's not something I was ever opposed to. If it was going to happen, it happens. That's fine. Well, I've never been one of those guys like, oh my God, I got married. I want to have kids so bad. If it had happened, great. But it didn't, and I've embraced the life that I have and the life that I live. I always joke around with people that are like, oh, how do you do that? Oh, how do you get to do it? And I say a couple of things. I say, well, passive income. Those two great words.
Yes.
If you can build passive income, or you can figure out a way to bring in income without having to be somewhere and have, ball and chain, that helps without a doubt. And also, I always say I got 3 rules on how to live an adventurous life and travel the way that I've traveled, especially these last few years. I say, rule number 1, don't fucking die. Rule number 2 is don't get married, and rule number 3 is don't have kids. Now, that's not enough to have kids, because you can still...
That's true.
People who literally travel with their 3-year-old child.
Yeah.
Sri Lanka. I met a woman in Namibia who was traveling with her 2-year-old, and she travels all the time. But for me, and there's certain obligations you have when you have children, and it takes away some of your freedom to be selfish.
Right.
And for whatever reason, I didn't get married and I don't have kids, and I've been able to live my life the way I've been living it, and I love it. Like I don't have any regrets. I don't think of it like you can't live your life with regrets.
That's right.
So my advice to people, though, aside from that, people are gonna do what they do. Just get out of your comfort zone and don't be afraid of stuff you see on the news. We're such an America-centric country. We're very inward looking, not outward looking. And when some of my friends around here will be like, yeah, you went to Angola? What are you doing in Zimbabwe? Oh, I can't believe you went to Uganda. Like, why? I mean, it's great. People are nice. They want to have tourists. Sure. Sometimes it can be annoying. You go to Zimbabwe and can't take more than 2 steps without someone asking for money or trying to sell you the same trinket that the last 10 people you just walked past tried to sell you. Yeah, it can get on your nerves a little bit. And then you just try to put it in perspective. Okay, they're struggling. They're just trying to make any penny. But I can't buy something from you because if I buy something from you, the next 10 people that just saw me say no are going to come up and start selling me stuff. And I don't need it. So it's a matter of sometimes you just got to be like, I get it. You're in a country that's very poor and you're just trying to be there as a visitor and you can't stand all those people. So you can't go in with an attitude that you're gonna. Just go in with like, I want to experience this country. I want to see what it's like. There's going to be some things get a little frustrating or things that you see that are going to make you sad, or it's okay to be empathetic, but you're still just experiencing something that you're not going to get if you don't
do it. Okay.
So see, I travel. I'm like, bro, you went to Costa Rica and stayed in a resort for 7 days. That's not traveling. Yeah, you got your passport stamp says Costa Rica.
But right. It's the experience. It's the experience. So listen, so we got to wrap it up. And I appreciate you and I thank you for coming on the show because
Thank you for having me.
You are an experience.
I'm an experience.
You're an experience. Yes. So listen, Gary, I'm going to talk you into that travel show because I'm telling you, if you for some reason don't do a travel show, I mean, you could document all the, I'm telling you, just listen, it would be big. Okay. It's a good idea.
I know, I got to get one of those cameras.
I've got good ideas. Okay. So just,
how to be an editor.
well, I've got one. There you go. Yeah, I've got one. You can send all your criteria to him and he can help you. So anyway, it was great. It was great seeing you again.
Great to see you.
And if you ever just happen to come to Florida, just call and we'll love to see you. So anyway, okay. So
Instagram, I'm leaving for Japan tomorrow.
All right. Well, don't eat anything live, okay? Oh, God, that's so gross. But anyway, take care, and thank you for coming on the show. I'll see you again, okay?
Hey, wait, when I was in Laos on overnight bus, we stopped on the side of the road, and the food options were grilled rat, or fried crickets.
Ew. Oh, yeah. No.
Crickets.
Okay, bye.
Ciao.